the reason why I built this webinar topic, this particular one called, tips and tricks or secrets of the perfect photo suite, is because I would get these themes of questions from users out there. And there were some common themes of certain little things that maybe you may not be as familiar with. So I built this webinar, and I'm going to expand on it. We'll change up the themes from month to month, the tricks that we find. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and start using photo tools, photo frame, and I believe perfect resize for this particular session. And I'll show you some lesser known tips and functionality. Hopefully it'll help out. And if you've attended this webinar in the past, this particular theme, then maybe it could be a good refresher course for you. So let's take this first image. I'm going to drag it over to Photoshop. Now, for those of you that may not be familiar with the On1 products, our products are available. You can access them in Photoshop, or if you're a Lightroom user, you can access our products from Lightroom, or if you're an Aperture user, we've got plugins for those products as well. We want to make sure that we work wherever you work. So to that point, you can see in Photoshop I've got this convenient On1 palette. To access the palette, all you need to do is go to Window, Extensions, and select On1, and that'll pop up this On1 palette. You can have it free floating and have it wherever you want, or you can dock it in any existing pane. Another way that you can access the products is by going to File, and then going to Automate and selecting any one of the products you have installed here. So the first tip I want to show you has to do with photo tools. So this image that I took it's a single exposure HDR image. Posted it a while ago. This is the Royal Clipper. It's the world's largest square-rigged sailing vessel, and it was just outside of the coast of Amalfi. And I used photo tools specifically to stylize this image. I used Moulin Rouge and Golden Hour Enhancer to get the look of this image. And there's a cool, let's say you wanted to have more fog. So in the background there was a little bit of fog rolling in. And the HDR helped cut through it. But let's say you want to reintroduce some of it. You can do it in Photo Tools pretty easily. If you go to the search function here and then type in the word fog, you'll have two different options that come in. Now, the first option you'll see here has a little bug next to it. And that means that the effect will apply using a masking bug. The second option has a pen. The pen tool means that you paint the effect in where you want with a masking pen. So here's the thing. If we add the masking bug fog effect, what will happen is you'll get this bug. You'll see it right here. Anything inside of the confines of the masking bug will have the fog. Anything outside will not. Now this should be familiar to you if you're a focal point user, because this looks like the focal point focus bug. The difference is in focal point, the bug controls what's in focus and what's out of focus. But in Photo Tools, it's a masking bug. So the thing is, I don't necessarily want maybe the fog over here, and it would be a pain for me to kind of enlarge this and paint out what I don't want. So there's a pretty little known little tip that you can do when working with a masking bug, and that is you can invert the bug by hitting under the masking palette, hitting invert mask. And what that does is it reverses the functionality of the bug. So originally the fog was appearing inside the confine of the bug, so within these lines. But by inverting it, the opposite happens. So now the fog is appearing everywhere but the bug. And this is good because now I can control where the fog appears. So I can create this strip, this really narrow strip, and fog out the sky and the water. And if I want, what I can do is once my bug is positioned, I can still control the strength of that fog. But if I want to have the ship in focus without the fog, I can just select my masking brush here, which is next to the bug. I can make sure that paint out is selected, and now what I'm free to do is paint the fog out. So I can draw the fog out, and so you get the best of both worlds here. And I'm just kind of doing a sloppy job, but you can see how the sails are coming back into focus. It's not really as fogged out. And so you get total control over how the image looks with each effect. So I'm just going to kind of paint through over here just until I get a result that I'm happy with. And so you can see the before and the after. We're kind of adding a little bit more fog to those areas. And if you go to show mask, everything that's in white has the fog. And if you can see, if we invert the mask, it basically reflects its opposite. So what we want to do is have fog in white or in gray, and then paint out in black what we want to protect. So if we hide the mask, we can protect all this area here. So that's a quick tip. I think a lot of people don't give the masking bug the attention that it deserves, and also the inversion of a masking bug. It's actually very helpful. Another thing that we can do, if we reset this image here, we can go to the categories, and I believe it's under lighting effects. We've got an effect here called dynamic light. And so what I can do is I can select light planar and add that to the stack. And so you can see we've got this masking bug, and anywhere that the bug appears will be lighter. So let's say I want to invert it. It just creates the opposite. The other thing we could do is we can darken planar. And so let's say I want the ship a little bit darker. I can do that just across a plane. Or I can invert it and make everything else darker and almost create somewhat of a using like a graduated neutral density filter by darkening the top portion of the image because I inverted it. And again, you're always free to use the masking bug in combination with a masking brush to paint out the effect where you don't want it. So that was a quick tip. Let's move on now. The next image here is an image I took of two friends of mine. This was their engagement shoot. And one of the more popular looks for these kinds of shots is to create a faux ripped or torn edge. So it would look like, let me just make this brush size smaller. We would have like a torn edge here that we can kind of control what appears in it. There's a really easy way to do this in photo frame, and I don't think it's very apparent. So what I'm going to do is go into photo frame here just by double clicking on it. So with that, what we're going to want to do is close out of here. The reason why I want to close out of here is because before we do anything, it's important that we select a certain option here under the options palette. Now, if you don't know how to get to the options palette, just go to Window, and you'll want to toggle Hide or Show Options. Or you can use the keyboard shortcut of Command 9 on the Mac or Control 9 on the PC. And what we're going to want to do is select Apply as Clipping Mask. This way, when we apply the torn effect, it's going to essentially embed the mask. It's going to force the image to stick within the mask itself and not bleed outside of it. So what does that mean? Well, let's open the library up and let's just do a search for the word rip. You can see we've got various options here. And if we scroll down, you can choose the rip pattern that most suits you. So let's say, this one right here. We can hit Add Frame. And what will happen is Photo Frame will create a clipping mask which will bind the image specifically to this mask here. And the cool thing is, let's hit Apply. We'll be able to essentially control exactly what appears in this mask. So now we've got the mask here, and we don't have to worry about if we select the image and we start moving around, it doesn't appear. Normally it would appear outside of the frame if you didn't have a clipping mask. But because we clip the image to the mask, it's confined inside of that mask, the torn mask. And what I'm free to do now is I can go into what's called free transform mode by going to edit and then selecting free transform. And again, the keyboard shortcut on a Mac is Command T, and on a PC it's Control T. What this allows me to do is adjust the size. Let me actually quit out here for a second. When you're adjusting the shape of the image in the clipped mask, especially if you're dragging from one of the corner handlebars, you want to make sure that you hold the shift key. Watch what happens if I don't hold the shift key. You see how it's distorting the image? Now watch what happens when I'm not even going to let go. I'm just going to press and hold the shift key. It automatically retains the proportion. If I let go, it doesn't. So you'll want to press and hold the shift key when you're resizing a free transform because you don't want to warp your image. So again, what I can do is I can position the image here, and I want to make sure that you see as I'm dragging over, I'm starting to get this black over here. That means that the image is not covering the mask. So we want to make sure that whenever we position the image, the entire mask is covered. But now I'm free to kind of resize it. Let's say I want to have the top of her head appear in the mask. I can do that. When I'm done, you can either hit this check mark over here to commit the transform, or you can hit enter or return on your keyboard, and that commits the transform. And you can see actually we still have a little bit up here that we need to fill, so I can go back into free transform and drag it up just a bit. And now we're good. So that's a quick way to use a clipping mask to confine your image to a specific pattern. Otherwise, the image would bleed over and it wouldn't look good. There's a question of what does batch mean. So you see PhotoFrame 4.6 batch. Several of our products have that. So if you go into Photo Tools, there's a batch function. I believe Focal Point has a batch function. No, Focal Point does not have a batch function. PhotoFrame does. Perfect Resize has a batch function. And I think PhotoTune does too. It does. Mask Pro does not. What the batch function means is that, let's say you have a folder of 15 images, and you want to apply a specific series of effects, or you want to resize them using Perfect Resize. You can use the batch function to automate that. So instead of going one image by image into Photo Tools and doing the same steps, if you know you want to apply the same steps or the same preset to a number of images, you will launch here we can just launch it right now. If we go to Photo Tools and launch batch, it just basically says, all right, process using what? And you have a list of every single effect and preset. So you would select which effect or preset. You would specify the source. So where is the folder? Then you'd specify the destination. Where do you want it to go? And then you can change things like the file name if you want to customize the file name and the file type. You can also apply a watermark, which is really nice. So it's exactly what it is. It's a batch process. So that was, with that quick segue, that was how to use Photo Tools. No, that's how you use PhotoFrame as with a clipping mask. So let's close out of here and let's go on to the next example. I'm going to bring this image over to Photoshop. All right. So this is a quick one. This is really not. This is kind of more helpful if you're into album design. So the problem with this right here is if you started working on this image in PhotoFrame, it would work great, except you would have to scale this image down after the fact if you wanted to place it on a page. To use PhotoFrame most effectively, especially when you're trying to build your own album layout, the first thing you'll want to do is go to File, New, and create your page. So if I go here and I change the units from pixels to inches, I'm going to create a new document. I'm going to have the width 11 inches and change the height to 8.5. So, and I'll keep this as RGB color. So what I'm doing is I'm creating an 8.5 by 11, a horizontal piece of paper. I'll hit OK. So here's my 8.5 by 11 page. What I can do now is I can take this image here and I can resize it as well. So let's say I want this image to take up, I'm going to change the units here, or it's already inches. I'll change it to 3 inches. Photoshop will automatically adjust the height appropriately. And now what I can do is I can take the image, I'll select all, and just drag it to this page here. So now what we have is a page, and we can put the image wherever we want, and if we want, we could work on several images, which we'll do in another example. So you can position it wherever you want. If you need to free transform it, you can make it a little bit larger. And the point is that by working with the layer on its own, the image on its own layer, you're free to kind of customize this page because you've always got you can turn the image on and off. You still have the page layout over here. So what I can do is I can go into photo frame here and I can select a frame that I like. Now notice, here's a good example of how photo frame works. You see how you're not really seeing the frame anywhere? If we go to any of these frames down here, you're not actually seeing the frame. The reason for that is this. We're going to close out of the library in photo frame. You remember how in the previous example under the options palette we changed the radio button to say apply as a clipping mask? This is a sticky setting, meaning when you select it, photo frame remembers that option. So what you're going to want to do is go back to your apply each frame to new layer. This is my favorite option. Now when we go back into the library, you'll see the frame. You'll see the frames that weren't there before. So what we're free to do now is go and find a frame that we like. And really, it's up to you what works. Like we can go to large format. That's not that good. Let's go to instant film, see what we have here. This one's kind of cool. Let's just do this one. We'll hit add frame. Now what we can do is we can size the frame to the image. Just kind of drag it by the handlebars and get it so that I like to have the frame bleed over the image a little bit because it's got this cool emulsion. Now we can hit apply and it'll add the frame around the image. And because we added it as its own layer, we can turn that off and now we have a template. What we can also do is, let's see if this will work. If I go to the background layer and I go to photo frame, I want to see if I can add a background. So let's go here and we'll go to the backgrounds tab and we'll go to the composites. Or maybe let's see if we have some other cool effects or cool backgrounds here. Let's do this one, this first one. We'll hit add frame. So now we've created a background. Now let's hit apply. So you can see what happened was because I applied the background within photo frame from the background layer, I now have a background on my image. So if I turn this off, I've got a template. I can go and take another image, put it right here, and then size it to this window. And that's because we worked in layers. If this was all on one layer, we wouldn't be able to have this scalability. And so we can turn each element off. I can turn the background off, I can turn the frame off, or I can turn the image off. And that's how you go into album design with photo frame. You just build the size of your paper, which was this background here, and then you can choose a background that you like, and then start placing your images on the paper, and then use photo frame to frame them. All right, and that's great and everything, but let's do an image, or let's do an example with multiple images, a page that has 3 images. So let's close this and let's close this image here. Now I've got an image here, and I'm just going to use the same image. I'm just going to duplicate it 3 times. So let's create a new document, and again we'll do 8.5 by 11. This time I'm going to change it from RGB to grayscale. By doing this, by changing the color mode in Photoshop to grayscale, any file or any image that I put on here will automatically be converted to grayscale, so it'll have a black and white feel to it. So we've got our 8.5 by 11 image here. Let's go here and resize this. We'll change this to 3 inches. Oh no, I want the height to be 3 inches rather. Okay. Now I can select it and then move it here. And so you can see how it went from color to black and white. Now what I can do is I can take this image and I can duplicate it. you can duplicate it several ways. You can either go to layer, duplicate layer. You can hit Command J on a Mac or Control J on a PC, and that you can see makes a copy. So we'll rename this left, or wait 1 second, left image. Then this will be center image. And then the other way that you can duplicate a layer is by dragging it to the new layer icon, which is to the left of the trash can on the layer palette. And now what I can do is type right image. So I'll take the center image with my move tool and I'll move it over. Then I'll take the right image and I'll move that over. And now you can play around with adjusting it accordingly. I'm not going to spend too much time getting it straightened out, but my OCD is kicking in, so I'm going to try. Okay, let's pretend that's absolutely perfectly straight. And I could use guides and rulers, but I just want to move forward with this. So here, we've got an image. Pretend these are 3 different images. It doesn't really matter. The purpose is showing you how to create a multi-page layout. Let's say you want to get the same frame on all 3 images. The first thing I would do is, and this is important to check out, I've got my layer selected. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, with the cursor over the thumbnail, not on the layer itself, but on the thumbnail, I'm going to hit Command on the Mac or Control on the PC. You see how the icon changes? It adds a little broken square. That will load the selection itself. It'll actually load the image. Again, so I hit Command or Control and then clicked on this thumbnail, not on the layer itself, but on the thumbnail. So now we've got the selection selected. And if I go into photo frame, what will happen is it'll apply the frame specifically to the image. Not here, let me close out. By doing this, it's not going to apply to the whole paper. It's going to apply just to this image here, which is what I want. So let's go back into photo frame. We can go and start to find another frame that works. So let's see, under medium format, there's some cool ones. Let's see, what's a cool one? Let's do this one. Hit add frame. Okay, now that the frame's added, what we can do is we can adjust the size of it and to make it so that it meets the border. And so I'm just going to adjust the size using the size slider, and now I'm happy. So the frame kind of hits the border, and I have a good amount of space for the image itself with some cool semi-transparent elements. Now I can hit apply. And what it'll do is it'll apply the frame just to the image. You can see how now the image has a frame. So that's cool. But what if we want to get the same frame on all 3 images? We want to have kind of a concurrent theme. Well, that's pretty easy. What we'll do is we'll hit Command D or Control D to deselect. And you can go, I think, to select and then deselect right there. And then we'll go to the second layer, and again, we'll repeat the process by holding the Command or Control key to load the selection. But instead of going into photo frame itself, what we're going to do is we'll single click on photo frame, and then we're going to go to this category called last used. When I select it, you'll see that there's one option, last used. If I double click it, it's going to repeat the process. It'll basically redo exactly what I did. And because I loaded the selection, it only applied to that given selection. It didn't apply to the whole image. So let me show you. Let's do a quick example. Let's say I don't load this selection and I do last used. You can see how it applies to the whole page, and that's because we did not load our selection first. And that's what we want to avoid. So let me go to the history over here, and I'll just scoot back one. And now let's again go to the third image. We'll hit Command or Control, load the selection, and hit last used. So now we've got the frame. Oh, the reason why that didn't happen is because the layer has to be selected. So I did not select the layer. And this has happened to me on every single time I did this webinar. Um, and it's a good educational piece. You want to make sure that this layer is selected, even though the selection was loaded. If the layer is not selected, it won't work. So again, let's go to history and let's back up one. Let's load this layer, or let's select the layer and let's load the selection. And now let's do last use. And now it should appear on this third image. Okay, good. So now we've got it. Now again, let's say we want to go and add a background. Let's just select the background layer and we'll go into photo frame itself. So we'll go to Photo Frame Pro and we can go to the various background categories and we can see like there are a bunch of different categories that we can do. So this is a grayscale image, so everything's going to appear grayscale. Remember we did that color mode is grayscale. So we can go and find something that's cool. Maybe this kind of faux postcard look, and we'll hit add frame and then we'll hit apply. What it should do is it should put the background below the image in the frames, which it did. Now if you don't want the background to have a white border, we can go to the background layer, hit Command T or Control T, or we can go to Edit and then Free Transform, and we can just enlarge the background just a bit so that it covers the white part. And now we've got a full background. But remember, look what we did so far. If we deselect the images, we now have a template. We have our own custom template. I can take any other 3 images and use that same free transform. As long as they're in the correct position, I can free transform it to fit. The other nice thing is, so watch this. Let's say we're going to bring back the clipping mask option. Actually, we won't be able to, but the clipping mask option would bind this image to this frame, but we don't have an actual mask, which is fine. We can actually do this. Yeah, that's good. Let me just activate these images so you can see again what we were able to do. By selecting the actual image itself and not just applying photo frame to the layer, we're able to control exactly where the frame snaps to. So it's important, especially if you're going to do a multi-image template. Okay, let's move onward to the next example. So this is a Photo Tools example. I've got this image here, and I went ahead and it's an HDR image, but it hasn't been stylized at all. I want to add some style. So let's go into Photo Tools, and let's start stylizing. So let's say here, I go into this image and I start stylizing. I'll just choose a few different options, like let's do cyberpunk. We'll adjust the strength here. And then let's add golden hour enhancer just to warm it up a bit. And then maybe let's add a tiny bit of local contrast boost to give it a little bit of texture. Just a tiny bit of texture. Okay. Now let's say, you know what? There's a preset that I like. So if I go to my presets category here, under the HDR presets, there's a category called the Freak Show. And I like the way that looks. So you can see here, I've got my original, I've got Cyberpunk, Golden Hour Enhancer, and the local contrast boost. Now I want to add this preset, which is basically a collection of effects on top of it. So we'll hit at the stack, and notice what happened. If you apply a preset on top of individual effects, it overwrote them, which is a bummer, because I didn't want to overwrite it. I wanted to apply them in conjunction with the effects. So if we undo, so I just did a Command Z or Control Z. Um, if I want to apply a preset on top of existing effects, there's a very, it's not very well documented, so it's a little known trick, but if I hold the Alt key on the PC or the Option key on a Mac and I double click on the effect or in the preset, what will happen is it'll apply those two effects on top of the existing ones. So again, you'll want to make sure that if you want to apply a preset on top of existing effects, just hit the Alt or Option key while double clicking on the preset, and it'll apply on top of it. It won't replace it. And now you're free to go to the individual effects and adjust their intensity. So that's a quick trick there. Now I'm going to cancel out and we'll go to the next trick. All right, so let's take this image here and let's bring it into Photoshop. Another shot of the bride and groom. Let's go into focal point or photo tools rather. Let's stylize this. Now, personally, I love wedding photography that's black and white. There should be no surprise there. Black and white wedding photography, I mean, they go hand in hand. And in Photo Tools, we've got a black and white treatments category right here. A bunch of different effects that will give you different black and white looks. So the first thing that I want to do is apply this. I'll just do this first effect right here. This black and white GM Warm 1 plus Snappy A1. It was designed by Kevin Kubota. Let's hit Add to Stack. And here we go. So this is already looking better. The cool thing with black and white stacks is that you can apply different effects on top of each other. So we can go down here to this MacG black and white, and we can apply it on top of it. And when MacG is a bit strong, so we're going to drop the levels down because you can see how it kind of darkens everything. So let's just drop down the strength and boost it up a little bit. But I like how it adds to the image. And then the next thing that I want to do is kind of add a cool tint over the image. So we've got, where's my tinting? There it is, tinting treatments. And you can see tint with clean whites. And so all I need to do is select a color swatch that I want to tint. So I'm going to select this one right here and hit Add to Stack. And you can see how it kind of cools the image off. And if we put too much of it, it gets really, really cool. So we'll start down and we'll just kind of boost it up just a bit. Almost kind of a cyanotype type of look. So that's how we use it. So let's hit Apply. Now what Photo Tools will do is it'll render those effects, and we're going to have a cool looking image. I'm going to look a lot different than what the original one was, because in my opinion those colors were distracting. So here we go. We've got our image here, and you can see that Photo Tools places the effect on its own layer. Let's go ahead and let's load another image. You know, you're a wedding photographer, say, and you're working on a series of images for your client. And you're like, let's say this is a week from now. You know, you took a break, you wanted to come back and attack these images with a fresh head. And so you come across this image and you're like, oh, you know, this image is kind of similar to this image over here. It's got brick and foliage, and I like the way it looks. Now, if you go into Photo Tools, let's go into Photo Tools. You're sitting there, you're like, I can't really remember what I did to this image. I don't remember the exact order of the effects. I don't remember the strength of them. You know, what can I do? Because once you hit Apply, that's it. You can't go back to the image in Photo Tools and adjust. That is something that, you know, we're strongly building out. But for now, once you hit Apply in Photo Tools, it's over. So here's the cool thing. Similar to that recently used example we did in Photo Frame, if you go to your presets and you go to this category called recently used, you can see here is the last time you used Photo Tools. This will show you the last 6 times you hit apply in Photo Tools. So and the nice thing is it actually gives you a preview of what image you used. So what I can do is hit add to stack, and it'll reapply those effects in the same order, at the same strength, exactly the same way. It's kind of like a recall function, but it only shows the last 6 steps. So you'll want to make sure that, you know, if there's something you want to recall, that it was within the last 6 times. But here's the cool thing. Now that you've recalled it, clearly this is a look that you like. What you can do now is go to File and then save it as a preset. You can save it as your own custom preset. So you could say, my wedding look, and you can put it in a category of your choosing, so wherever you want. We can do Brian's wedding presets, my wedding look, and you can type in who you are, Brian Matiash. This is my signature wedding look. You can also add keywords so that you can search by. So you can say black and white. You could say dark, cool, whatever you want. And then you can hit create. Now, let's say you want to share this preset. I love sharing presets. What you can do is you can go to File, Show Presets folder, and then here you go. You've got all of your presets for on one. So here's Brian's wedding presets, and here's my preset. I can give this to anyone who has Photo Tools 2.6, and if you get this PTO file, all you need to do is go to File, Import Preset, and then navigate to that PTO file that was sent to you, and then now you'll have it in your copy of Photo Tools, and you can use it. So it's a cool way to kind of make sure that if you find a certain combination of effects that work really well, you make sure you use presets. That's how this presets for HDR category came to exist. For when we upgraded Photo Tools 2.5 to 2.6 in December, we realized that HDR photography is very much a popular style, and I personally am very, very heavily, vested in that genre of photography. I'm also extremely heavily vested in Photo Tools. Photo Tools is an extremely critical part of my workflow. So I know which effects work best for me to achieve a certain look. So what I did was I built these presets out, and we built them into Photo Tools 2.6, which is really cool. So whenever you download your copy of Photo Tools 2.6, you will have this presets for HDR with my presets. And they work really well, especially for kind of architecture and urbex shots. So that's a quick primer for using presets and how to use the recall function. The last tip that I want to show you is for perfect resize. So let's bring this image into Photoshop. Okay. So we've got this image here, and let's say I want to print a canvas. I want to hang this up on my wall using canvas. We can go to perfect resize over here. And the first thing you'll notice is that you can select the document size. So you can go here and change it to whatever you want. Let's say I want to print a 16 by 20. You can just use the document size presets, and it'll enlarge it automatically for you. It'll also say if the 16 by 20 does not match the original constraint of your image, it'll give you this convenient crop box. So anything that appears in here, in this box, will print at 16 by 20. And you can adjust the size and the positioning. So let's say you only want this to appear in your print, you can do that. Now, the way canvas printing works is the image is printed on canvas paper, and then it's wrapped around a wooden stretcher bar. So it's just a wooden frame. And the problem is that you don't necessarily know what part of your image will stretch around the outside part of the bar. With Gallery Wrap in Perfect Resize, you get an exact preview of what will appear. So the first thing to note is that your original composition, basically what appears inside your crop box, will be untouched. you know that the front part of your image will have everything that you wanted. But then it'll also, Perfect Resize will automatically sample the inner 2 inches of the frame and reflect it to the outside. So it gives it somewhat of a three-dimensional um, look. Because when it's hanging, you'll see the side. So this will be the left side of your frame. This will be the top of your frame, and it does a really nice job. Now, let's turn this off for a second, the gallery wrap. Let's just say for and let's reset the size. Okay, let's say you want to create a triptych out of this, meaning you want to take this image here. Well, technically a triptych could be 3 different images that kind of have some sort of correlation to each other. In this case here, I'm just going to create 3 panels. I'm going to break the image down 1, 2, 3. You can do that using this tiling option. So if we turn tiling on, what we're going to do is we're going to change the units from inches to columns. When you change it from columns, the second unit will automatically change to rows. And so you can see, let's say in this case here, I don't want 9 different boxes. I just want 3 panels. So what I want is I want 3 columns, but I want only 1 row. So now you can visualize the 3 panels, 1, 2, 3. They're evenly spaced, and they will all print at 7.5 by 11 inches, which is really convenient. Or you can change it to whatever size you want. The combination of breaking these into tiles and printing gallery wrap, you'll get a warning that says Perfect Resize will not preview gallery wrap wings when tiling is on. And that makes sense. The wings are what you saw earlier where it showed the top and the bottom and the left and right. But what will happen is when you hit apply, Perfect Resize will build 3 different files for you. It will print this file with the wings, the center file with the wings, and the right file with the wings. Now you can send all 3 images to your Canvas printer, and they will properly print it and mount it for you on the stretcher bar. So that's really useful as people are starting to do more of these Canvas prints in series. This helps out a lot. Let me see, there's a question here about Perfect Resize. Does Perfect Resize work equally well for enlarging and reducing photo sizing? Absolutely. Perfect Resize is the next generation of Genuine Fractals. Genuine Fractals is the industry leader for image enlargement. There's nothing better. If you want to take an image and blow it up 800, 1,000%, it is significantly better than Photoshop. If you're enlarging an image up to 200%, between 100 and 200%, Photoshop and Perfect Resize are very, very similar. You won't see much of a difference there. Once you start exceeding that, especially, like I said, going to 400, 500%, and up to 1,000%, Perfect Resize is hands down the superior option because of our proprietary algorithm for enlargement. So, and yeah, Kim points out that the newest update. So like I said, we released a maintenance release for Perfect Photo Suite 5.5, and the newest version is 5.5.1. One of the major updates was to Perfect Resize, where the performance was significantly improved. I give so much credit to our engineers and developers because they really went to town and improved it, sometimes up to 100% faster. And it makes it a joy to demo because I know how responsive it is. So thank you for bringing that up, Kim. So that's Perfect Resize. And that's basically what we have for some of the tips and tricks of how I use Perfect Photo Suite. Let me just see if there are any questions before we finish this up. The way you'll know what the latest version of any of the products are is to go into the individual products. So go into Perfect Resize and then go to, if you're on Windows, I think it's under Help and then About. And on Mac, you would go to About Perfect Resize. So you would see the version pop up. Kim asks whether PhotoFrame will work with smart objects. Right now, I believe only Focal Point works as a smart object. So it won't work necessarily as a smart object, but I am, excuse me, working to build a webinar around this. I'm trying to see if there will be a way to get it to work. So stay tuned for that. Um, Rod asks, in the gallery wrap option, there was a thickness of the stretch bar. So let me go really quickly here. Let me bring this image back in. Actually, I could just go to Photoshop and open recent. All right, so if we go to perfect resize, there was a, under the gallery wrap, there's the thickness. You are correct. The thickness corresponds to the thickness of the stretcher bars themselves. So we're saying that the wooden bars are 2 inches thick. The best thing to do is, before you start working on this, call your printer, your canvas printer, and simply ask them, what is the thickness for gallery wraps? Most printers are very, very familiar with our new capability of gallery wrapping, and they will know the answer to that. They also will they will know what to do with the gallery wrap. So if you turn this on and you provide them with this image with these wings, they will know exactly what to do. And it makes it easier for them because it'll print out appropriately. Um, Kevin's saying that in perfect resize and photo tools, there is no file edit. That should definitely be there. I wonder if you're, let me see if you try to access it from within Lightroom. Let's just take this image here and we'll go to File, plug in extras, we'll go to perfect resize. Open. No, I don't know, Kevin. There might be something with the resolution of your display because this should appear no matter what. Unless you're a PC, I don't. The PC should also have that information. So I would, if you don't see that, I would definitely recommend reaching out to our support team. Just go to our website and go to the support button on the menu bar on top because that should definitely appear there. Oh, I see that I think there's a significant lag in the video. Um, Rod asks, how much will gallery wrap add on the stretching area? Basically, depending on the mode. So if we go here, and I think this will answer your question. If we go to perfect resize, and depending on the mode, so we'll turn gallery wrap on. If you have reflect or reflect soft selected as your method, the perfect resize will sample the inner 2 inches from the frame. If you select stretch, it'll sample the inner inch and stretch it out. So that's how that's how perfect resize will calculate what appears on these wrapped around areas. You can also do different things like, let's say you want to, let's change this back to reflect because I can't stand stretch. Let's say you want to apply a certain color over here, a little overlay. Um, you can adjust the opacity here. So watch, at 100%, it becomes black. But let's say at 50%, you can see it's kind of got a black shade to it. If we click on this color button, this color mode comes out. And if you select the magnifying glass over here, you can actually sample a color from here. And so it'll change the overall, like if we go to this bright area here, like in the light, and then we hit close, you see how it kind of samples that color. Now you can adjust the opacity. You could bring it down. But what it'll do is it'll add a little bit of um, a consistent color theme if you want, if that interests you. Okay, cancel out of here and close this up. You got it, Rod. So that's it. I think, let me see if there are any questions I missed. Marjorie is saying, so Marjorie, are you saying that in Photoshop CS3 you don't have this palette? I believe that that is a function of with CS5. I don't remember, but I think with CS3 and CS4 you might actually have an on-one menu item up here, which I loved, but they took it away. So we've got this palette here, and I believe that's CS5. Um, Craig, I can't comment on the future of our on-one products, but you might be on the right track. Um, we will be. Trust me when I say that we're doing some fantastic things. I see Phil and Craig are kind of have their speculations of what's coming, and we've got some good stuff coming. I promise you. But I can't comment on what, and I can't comment on when. So I've it's going to be awesome. Trust me. Um, but we do have Perfect Layers coming out. The public preview release of Perfect Layers is scheduled for next month, um, which will allow you to basically do have a layered workflow without using Photoshop. So you can go into Lightroom and select two different images and then use Perfect Layers to mask this person into this image here or blend them in various things. It's going to be awesome. Uh, and those of you who are existing Perfect Photo Suite customers get that for free. And if you're a Plugin Suite 5 customer, your upgrade to the Perfect Photo Suite 5.5 should be free as well. Perfect Layers will absolutely work with Aperture, Craig. It'll work with Aperture and Lightroom. So if you're a Plugin Suite 4 or earlier, there is an upgrade price to the Perfect Photo Suite 5.5, but you will get Perfect Layers for free as well. So it's a good time. 2011 is going to be pretty solid. James is saying that you've got the ON1 plugin showing in CS5, but not Lightroom. So to get to the Lightroom plugins, you go to File, Plugin Extras, and you should see them there. You can go to the Plugin Manager and see. Let me see. Show and Finder. They should appear here. Oops. They should be under, if you're a Mac user, they're under your home library, then application support, Adobe, Lightroom, and then modules. If you don't have them there, reinstall the Perfect Photo Suite and they will appear. Candice, will I be doing webinars for Perfect Layers? Oh, you know it. I just was speaking with one of our VPs and we're going to be doing, I want to do kind of like how Apple does their keynotes and they introduce a new product. We're going to do that with the webinar with Perfect Layers. I'm going to do an initial preview so that everyone gets an idea of what it looks like and how to use it and I haven't even to be fair, I haven't even gotten a functional build of it yet. So it's coming very soon. I should have a functional build with it very, very soon so I can play with and then figure out how to build a curriculum around it. We'll have a public preview webinar release, and then we're going to have, as it releases to the general public, we're going to have all different ideas. Like it'll expand tremendously. So rest assured that we'll take care of you with the webinars. All right, good, James. I'm glad you found it. Do you have time to show us watermarking? Um, Watermarking with Lightroom? I don't really watermark my images, but I know that Lightroom has a watermark function. If I go here and export, let's say I'll go to the export dialog. Under here, there's a watermarking option, and you can edit your watermarks. So basically, what you can do is load an image, say graphic, find a graphic. I don't know if that's what you were referring to in the On1 suite. What you can do with watermarks in the On1 suite is you can import your. I don't have the graphics ready, but in Photo Frame, what you can do is you can import your logo, let's see, let's just try this out. I don't know if this will work. So this is going to be kind of like laboratory science. Oh, it's not on this computer. I could probably try to get it on another computer. Let's go send this to Photoshop. And I'm giving you full disclosure that I don't know if this is going to work, but we can try. Let's go to, let me make sure that I can access my computer. This is my production machine. See, the benefits of working at home is that you have access to all of your technology. And then let's see, we'll go to bokeh and then to master photo library, logos, and let's see if I have a small sized logo. Um, what's this one? Okay, that'll do. Let's just let's copy this to locally to the desktop. Okay. Now let's see if we go into photo frame and we go to file, import frame, and we go to the desktop. The PNG does not work. Oh, it has to be a JPEG. Okay. Let's close out here for a second. Let's cancel. Let's hide Photoshop. Let's hide Lightroom. Let's go here. Let's open it up in preview. Let's save as JPEG. Save. Okay, now let's go back to Photoshop, back to photo frame. Let's import and see if it works. All right, import that, choose. Okay. All right, let's do a search for that Antonio. Okay, so here I imported my graphic and I can add it. And now I can kind of go here and resize it. Now it looks like, really bad because it's a very small JPEG. But if I compress it down, I can essentially do this, and now I have my watermark. I know, Craig. I know I'm editing the original. These are our stock images that we use um, uh, whenever we demo. I always edit the original, but I never save. So I appreciate the heads up. Good eye for checking that out. What Craig pointed out was that when I went into Lightroom and I went to edit in Photoshop, you see here these options. Normally, I always, if it's a production image, my own image, always select edit a copy. So what'll happen is Lightroom will create a copy of the image. But whenever I do an on one image, I'll just do the original. So thank you for the heads up. I appreciate that you guys are Hawkeyes. Um, so you can see this is how, Rod, I don't know if this answers your question, but you can import um, your logo into the library and then just add it as an element. And now you have control. Like I can go here. I think if let me see if I select a color. I just select one of these colors. Yeah, you can sample the colors. You don't want to sample blue because it looks like the background. Um, and here I can just do black. Or I can, sample any color here. There you go. That's how you can use. And the other cool thing is you can adjust the opacity. Basically, by importing your element into photo frame, you now have control over these various tools like opacity. So you can make it, you can move it. Oops, let's get the move tool, put it over here, say, and then adjust the opacity. And you can go back and just keep adding it, like add it again if you want multiple ones. Some people like to riddle their images with their copyrights, and that's fine. So that's kind of how you do it. You can make it, vary it. And I think Dave Cross showed that. Dave Cross did a Pro Series webinar a couple weeks ago, and he showed how he gets his logo in. So there you go. That's another quick tip. Maybe I'll incorporate that.